me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. Yes, I am back again. The Midday Market Report, Part 2, Friday, March 10th, 2023. An absolute busy day today. 10 a.m. to be exact. 7 mobile apps in Massachusetts have launched. Let me see. It's 3:36. So that is 5 hours and 36 minutes. Massachusetts has enjoyed the mobile app life. After that, John Murgis and Dave Sharapan joined us with Breakfast Bankroll. An amazing story and stories, I should say, there. 2 o'clock, myself, Johnny VTV, and Matt Grissom talking some college baseball. And finally, the internet has won many times of late, but we get to be from Las Vegas, long time handicapper, writer, been in these games and lanes as long as us and even longer in some spots. To break bread here at ECSI, we're blessed and honored. Shout out to Mr. Lucky, Mr. Follow Fade, getting us finally together. And if Comcast is listening, I'm trying to double my speed here and get it. We're landlined. We couldn't do any more back here. So come down to the studio, 1480 Old Falmouth Road in Centerville, Massachusetts, Cape Cod. Come say hi. But until then, let's bring him on. Long awaited Mr. Stephen Nover.
Hi, Jeff. Well, we were down 0-2 in the count, but it looks like we're staying alive, so maybe we finally got on base here. So.
We fouled a few off. We never left the on-deck circle, and now we're here.
Great. Looking forward to it. You had some great guests earlier. I wish I could have gone ahead of them because they're tough acts to follow. So.
Well, the first of many, Stephen. So this is just the, we're getting up to the plate. I'm not fully loose. You're not loose. This will be a walk in the park for you. So let's talk. I like to say we're the OGs in these lanes. I talked about this backstage, 1975 to be exact. I placed my first wager. I was in 5th grade. Red Sox versus the Reds, World Series, 50 cents. Obviously, we know Bernie Cabo got us to Game 7 and Carlton Fisk, but in the end, I lost my first wager, and the rest is history. How about yourself?
Well, I predate you a few years. Jeff, my first bet, I was in 7th grade, and it was the second Super Bowl of all time. Packers and the Raiders. I was in Wisconsin, lifelong Packers fan, and it was halftime, and the Raiders were hanging in, and a buddy of mine from junior high calls me up and says, "Oh, I think the Raiders are going to win." I said, "Oh, you're crazy." Vince Lombardi's, he's not losing, his last game, and he goes, "Well, I'll bet you." I said, "All right, how much you want to bet?" He goes, "A dime." All right, I'll take you for a dime, and I ended up winning, but it was a real dime. It was 10 cents. So, that was the highlight of my betting career. It's been all downhill since then. So,
it's so funny. We remember our first bet. We usually remember all the losses and the bad beats. We don't remember the glory days, and we could talk for hours about bad beats, and especially in these lanes nowadays with social media, with all the outlets, as you stated, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked for 2 services that my homework assignment was from the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe, the New York Post, the USA Today, and then on Fridays, the National. And I know you remember those days.
Oh, yeah. National was a great paper, and the Boston Globe, maybe, back in the day for you, that might have been the greatest sports section of all time. they're the one, aren't they? And you'll know far better than I would, Jeff. But they're the ones that introduced the notes columns, in each sport. And man, what a line they were like the 27 Yankees with the writers they had. Then it's that was like my favorite sports section. It was tremendous.
And it was funny because then the Boston Herald decided on Fridays they were going to start with their breakdown of the NFL games and their final score prediction. And you'd always see someone out there. We had Bob Gamere, we used to call him Bob One Beer Gamere. He was famous for the Candlepins for Cash, but he's also a big-time sports gambler back in those days. And they also did this for the college. So it was almost like a carrot. The same with the New York Post. How many Friday editions can I get? And maybe I can get some information to help me place my wagers on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, just the total opposite of what it is now, where there's too much information. You got to sift through to find the few worthwhile information. We're back in the days that we're talking about, the 70s, the 80s, early 90s. You're going crazy trying to get information. I had many mentors, lucky enough to meet these people when I came out to Las Vegas, and I came out here not as a bettor, but as a sports writer. And one of the beats I soon inherited was the sports betting game beat. At the time, we're talking the 80s, it probably was the only sports betting beat like it in the whole country. And I got to meet a lot of bookmakers, odds makers. In fact, I worked part-time for Roxy Roxborough, one of the all-time great odds makers, and met a lot of bettors and really learned from them. And one of them was the late Lem Banker. And Lem was kind enough, he had me over to his house, and I learned a lot from him. And that was back in the days, Jeff, when information was so hard to get. Lem was one of those guys who paid various airport employees, janitors and things, to save them newspapers. And then every couple days, or maybe even every day, he'd run over the airport and pick these things up. And just, those were how hard you'd have to go for information sources. And, as far as researching for stories that I'd have to do, there's no internet. There's no email. It involved, being on the phone all the time, establishing contacts at the library where these people might be able to help you out, with requests and things. Just prehistoric times.
We would, the funny thing was in the college days is, the gambling was ramping up for me in the mid to late 80s. Again, no internet, no cell phones. It was the 900 numbers every 10 minutes. Just to get the updates, number one. And number two, all those newspapers that I talked about, you would have to hope and pray that they had the West Coast box scores to see if you won or lost before you could call the guy at 1 o'clock to place the afternoon wagers.
Yeah, I had a different situation being on the West Coast. And, working for the newspaper, we had several editions, and that a late edition wouldn't be put to bed until we had the damn Mariners score, and you'd always be waiting around for them. They'd always be in extra innings and stuff like that. So, I'm still to this day glad to be when I'm in Las Vegas on the West Coast. I cannot go to bed unless I know every final score. And I don't know how you poor guys on the East Coast can do it, because I can't go to bed. And if it ever happens where I'm just dead tired, I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't have this score. I got to go back and find this score, It's so ingrained in you now.
It was funny. We were 5-0 to start this week, and I had an 11:30 start that didn't start until 11:45, and we had Utah Tech +2 against Stephen F. Austin on Tuesday, and Tech's leading the whole game. So I'm like, okay, well, it just happens to go to overtime. And we ended up winning outright and cashing the +2 and then the +115 money line. But the funny thing is, the game ended at 2:08 my time. And I'm like, what are you doing staying up trying to wait for this? You're having a great week. It doesn't matter at this point. And the alarm's being set at 5 o'clock. I mean, I got 2.5 hours sleep.
I can totally relate because I was involved in that game too. Unfortunately for me, on the other side. I was on the other side, and they were losing the whole time. I had them on the money line. I said, God, just win the damn game. And they got it to overtime, and I keep staying up late and late. I want to go to bed. I can't go to bed. It's not so bad my time, but it's still late, 11:30, midnight, whatever, and... so then, I see the result, I'm all mad, and I go to bed mad, and so there's flip sides to this, Jeff, from whatever coast you're on.
Let's catch up to speed. Conference championship week going on as we speak. At halftime, Ohio State, Michigan State. Ohio State right now up 33-24. I'm looking at the live odds. Circa right now has Michigan State -7. Wow. -7 and holy moly. -7 with a 70 and a hook. So they think that Michigan State's going to run in them. Tennessee right now up 10-8, 10-9 against Missouri. How you been hitting them this week to start? And tell everyone your process. How do you correlate? How do you pull these things out of your hat like we do?
Well, it started off the tournament good, but then the last couple of days have been losing days. And, so a lot of these games, with the point spread, Jeff, it turns into a coin flip, It's I was involved already. I had Purdue late 5.5, and they win by 5, and, you're just beginning your day, with that. And, you just hope to rebound. It's... college for me is more power ratings based than normally. My style is more a fundamental style. In the pro sports especially, I do a lot of hardcore rotisserie and fantasy leagues, so I really know the players, and that's how the basis of my handicapping starts. And then of course I look at the statistics. The situational elements are very key for me, although not so much for college. It's more helpful to me in the NBA, and then I look at the trends and angles to see if there's any pertinence in any of them, and of course with today's metrics, maybe if any of those make sense, and you kind of all brew it together in a pot and see what you come up with. But with the college, it's on the one hand, you go with your power ratings, but on the other hand, as you point out just now, look at Ohio State. I didn't think they'd get past Wisconsin, and now they're making if they win this game, they're making a deep run in the Big Ten tournament, and so that's the way I kind of look at things.
Do you find it hard, like for instance, if you had Wisconsin against Ohio State and Ohio State wins, and the opening number in this game was Michigan State 6, do you find it hard to jump back on the horse and say, well, listen, you got me the first time, you're not getting me the second time? Or do you take a step back, take a look at the number and say, it was a coin flip by one side, I'll pass them.
The Big Ten Conference, that's the conference I grew up in the Midwest. And unfortunately, I've been bit by Wisconsin all year. They bit me again against Ohio State. I just looked at it maybe too simplistic, obviously, just saying, look, Wisconsin's not losing to Ohio State. And they did. And they did. They don't have it this year. And they're probably not going to make the tournament, ending a long run. And as far as Michigan State, I have a feeling they're the right side, but I can't get involved with the game. The point spread's got to cooperate on their end, and then that's too high. So sometimes I've had some success with the tournaments with totals. Picking some spots with unders at some of these venues I don't think are fully accounted for, like the Missouri Valley Conference venue, some of these smaller conferences, the venues they're going in. There's already a a tendency to the under. Being in the tournament with the stakes increased, the defensive intensity, the equivalent of the NBA playoffs. But with these unders, especially in college, oh my God, Jeff, with this damn fouling at the end and so unnecessary. When the game is over, play the true things. Respect the totals players. If you've lost the game, don't foul. And just let the clock run out. It's. So they don't do that, so we know that. I'm kind of being facetious here, but that's kind of the way I've been trying to approach these tournaments.
It's funny because you are so correct. I've seen, in the last 90 seconds of college games this year, 18, 20, 22 points scored because the team trailing hits a three, foul. There's 2 points. So there's 5 points in 2 seconds. They come down, they get a layup, and then they foul again. And you're so right. For the under guys, if it's a close game, you're first couple minutes in a college game.
Yeah, and you gotta kind of look for these spots. There was a spot yesterday, Big West Conference tournament game involving Cal State Fullerton, and they hadn't played against Hawaii, and they hadn't played like in over a week or so. They had a couple cancellations. It actually was 11 days they hadn't played. So I don't know who's going to win that game. It's a pick'em game, but I do figure the first half there's not going to be many points. These are slow teams anyways. The total's set very low. So you factor in the rustiness. So under's the way to go, and that one did sneak under. So plus, that Big West site, it's unfamiliar to these teams, and so those are the kind of the spots you got to pick out. And it's usually the values more towards the under, and you got to play it early though, because the sharps are usually looking under. I see the line movements; it's always going towards the under, and the refs have to help out here. Let's say there's 1 or 2 seconds left. The game is no longer in doubt. It's an 8-10 point whatever game, and the guy's just hacking away. Don't blow the whistle unless he throws a punch in the guy's face. Just let the last 2 damn seconds go, okay? So it's to the point, Jeff, where I study up, I put out the plays. I don't want to watch the game, I don't want to watch what happens at the end there, It's
You talk about Big Ten. You grew up in Big Ten country. Purdue has been at the top of the Big Ten and the top of the country for most of the year with the big center there. I don't see Glenn Robinson, who had a great run back there in Purdue. I've had a hard time when thinking forward, this team making the Final Four, cutting the nets down. I've been bullish on them. I thought Indiana was rounding into form. Then they had a couple hiccups, and truth be told, my overnight number was a pick against Maryland. And it's funny, the public jumped all in on the Hoosier side, now -2 at 9 o'clock tonight. Give us your feel on what you think moving forward this weekend and going into the big dance on the Big Ten.
Well, I have maybe Purdue's the best team in the Big Ten, but I have no confidence in them. What have they ever won? And I go as far back as Rick Mount with Purdue. They have Joe Barry Carroll. They didn't win with him. They didn't win with the big dog. They're just, they got the great center, but I think the guards are, maybe too inexperienced or something. You press them, and I don't trust them when some team presses them. And the Big Ten, it's a physical conference. Everybody plays alike, and they get outside the Big Ten when they get to the big dance, and they're going to see different styles and things. And I don't trust any of those Big Ten teams, to win the big tournament.
Tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, any plays later on tonight that you've been eyeing that you got a certain feel for, or that you might already have in your back pocket?
Yeah, I'm involved in an under in a Big West Conference tournament game. These are low scoring. This is a low scoring conference with these teams involved, and they're playing us in actually Henderson, Nevada, right near me. And it's not the Thomas Mack Arena. It's not where the Raiders play. It's in some like center Dollar Loan Center or something. It's like this small little place in Henderson. And it's really rinky dink. There's a lot better places to play in Las Vegas. So there's not going to be that many fans. You can't pack that many people in there, and so I'm kind of more getting involved with some of these obscure minor conferences out west here. So that's kind of the way I'm approaching some of these tournaments.
Baseball around the corner, World Baseball Classic underway. Dominican Republic, the big favorite, not the big favorite, the favorite, USA, then Japan. And then, of course, the MLB coming up in a few weeks. A busy time for all of us. And I haven't even included the NHL and the NBA and PGA, UFC, more initials than the Webster Dictionary to talk about. But as we get closer to baseball, are you able to catch up on any spring training games or getting your homework ready, over-unders, anything that catches your eye there?
No, I'm way behind in my baseball research, and so I've really got to try to catch up with that, Jeff. It's just too much going on now. I just don't have time right now for baseball.
NBA trade deadline, gone. I'm about 45 minutes to an hour from TD Garden. I was at the Celtics Cavaliers game 2 Wednesdays ago. Celtics and Bucks out of the East are the prohibitive favorites. Out West, it's the Wild West. In comes KD. The Suns huge favorites now. KD goes down probably for the rest of the regular season. How are you looking at the NBA outside looking in?
Well, I'm waiting for the Warriors to make a move, but they still, all year long, I've played them at home, on them at home, and faded them on the road, and that pattern hasn't changed now. I keep waiting for them to make a real defensive commitment. They can maybe do that at home, but they've shown nothing on the road. So you got to think the Nuggets are the class of the West. Maybe it's their chance, but I still think right now, if I had to pick one team, it's the Bucks, and if they're healthy. I mean, if they would have had Middleton last year, they might have won it. Now they're healthy, and other teams aren't, and the best teams could be in the East. You mentioned the Celtics, and they're right there with the Bucks. Cavaliers have become very good. I mean, how good is the West, Jeff? When all of a sudden the Sacramento Kings are one of the elite teams now in the West, That's, I got to give Sacramento credit. That was another loser I had last night. I had the Knicks, taking points against them. They had a nice comeback. They fell way behind, but I thought that would fall in rhythm. And coming off that ambush with the Hornets, that the Knicks would, be ready for this game. And credit to Sacramento, even though they're playing at home. They've got a couple really, all-around star players, and Mike Brown, he's doing a nice job. But I mean, if you're talking a serious team to win the title, I can't go with Sacramento there.
Lastly, my locals at the Garden, the Boston Bruins, are on a historic pace to have the best season in the history of the NHL. They fall last night to Connor McDavid and company 3-2, and Connor didn't score the first time in 13 games, I think it was, or 12 games, that he hadn't got a point or scored. When I go to Vegas, I always attend at least one Vegas Knights game. I absolutely love the show and the presentation there. big fan. You dabble in the NHL, and if so, what's the temperature of the nights right now?
Well, I kind of dabble in the NHL. I kind of look to pick spots, usually with totals. Yeah, the Golden Knights, they're not fully healthy, but they've been getting some good goalie work as they've done, and they're going to be a factor. They could be there at the end, but I agree with you. I think the Bruins are definitely just having a season, of the ages. They're great defensively, they're great offensively. I went over, didn't get there with that Oilers Bruins game from the other day, and I figured Connor McDavid would get at least 1 or 2 points, and he didn't, and there was 5 goals scored. So, it just took another goal from the Bruins, and we would have got the over. But, hockey can be rough. I had one of my largest plays with the Bruins when they played at Seattle in that huge revenge game against the Kraken, and I was lucky to win that. I thought the Bruins would kill them, but the Kraken, they really hung in there. It was just fortunate the Bruins, they even covered the puck line. They scored a couple of ones there at the end. I was afraid that was going to go overtime, and it's hockey's just as rough as the other sports. It's no break with that.
Stephen, the crawler's been going the whole time. I know where I can find you on Twitter at Stephen Nover1. I like to close out a show by turning over the stage to you so you can tell everyone where they can find you on social media, where they can find all your work and your picks and everything like that, Stephen.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Jeff. I'm on several websites. I'm at pregame.com. You can find me there. I'm at vegasinsider.com. You can find me there. Also, picks and parlays, sports capping, also pick advisors, and also on Twitter you can message me, and I have my own service. I'd be happy to work with you there, and so that's at Stephen Nover at StephenNover.1, I'm around, and I'll just guarantee you the work will be put in. That I can guarantee you. So can't guarantee you the results, but hopefully the work and a good opinion will be put in. So.
Well, we finally got through round number 1. The internet did not prevail, and I can't thank you enough for all your patience. And we will make sure that ECSI circles back the wagons and check in and get you on here more often than not. How's that sound?
Well, that'd be great, Jeff. You got to give me a chance, maybe the next time or something, to state my case why Billy Martin should be in the Hall of Fame. So,
well, that will be our lead-in in the next show. How's that sound?
Okay, that sounds great, Jeff.
From the one and only Mr. Stephen Nover, and go find him at Stephen Nover1. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from everyone watching and listening, we can't thank you guys enough. Without you, there's no ECSI, there's no Stephen Nover. Come check us out on social media. Go check out our websites. And we are 2 guys that if you follow us, A, we'll follow you back. B, we actually do answer questions as well. So everyone, enjoy the madness out there. Always, always, always wager responsibly. If you do have a problem, pick up the phone. There's an 800 number. Just ask for help. Why? I care. Stephen cares. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and 23 and beyond. For myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, Stephen Nover at Stephen Nover1. We wish everyone a great afternoon, and we will